Good morning. Welcome to our Wednesday devotional. Last Sunday, for those that were there or weren't there, I preached a message about God's protection. In fact, I used Donald Trump and the assassination attempt as an illustration of God's protection. I had a couple of questions come up afterwards, and God willing, I'll deal with them next Sunday. Some questions about God's protection. Interesting questions. But today I just want to think about not only God's protection, but God's direction. I said about God's protection that He's able to protect us from anything, harm, sadness, anything. He's able. But He doesn't always protect us from things. He allows us to go through some things, sometimes as punishment, but often to strengthen us so we can be able to help others. And I also reminded you that God really is trying to protect everyone from the eternal punishment of hell. He let Jesus Christ die to provide protection if we'll receive Him as our Savior. But on that Sunday, last Sunday, the 21st, before I preached the message on God's protection, that morning I had read a verse that I think also is appropriate. Now, maybe you know that I have a habit, one of my devotional habits, is to read the chapter of Proverbs that corresponds with the day of the month. So on the 21st, last Sunday, I was reading Proverbs 21 along with other devotional material. You know what Proverbs 21:1 says? Listen to this. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord as rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. And as I was thinking of God's protection that day and planning to preach on that, I thought about God's direction also. Let me give you an illustration. When the Israelites wanted a king, they wanted a king because everybody else around them had a king. So God allowed them to have a king, and he had the prophet anoint King Saul to be the king. King Saul started out well, but God knew that he would become proud and he would be disobedient. Now, God knew that because God knows the future. God's written the future. God has written the book of Revelation, or given us the book of Revelation, so we can know the future. He knows all the way till the time Jesus returns. He knows through the tribulation period. He knows all that. So he knew what King Saul would do and how he'd respond. So the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. So the king disobeyed God. God allowed that to happen. And meanwhile, he had the prophet anoint David to be the next king. So when King Saul was killed in battle, King David was ready to step in. I'm saying that God knows the future and he directs it because he knows it. Well, I'm actually preparing this devotional. I'm recording this devotional on Sunday afternoon for showing on our website on Wednesday. Do you know what just came across the news? By now you've already heard it. But it just came across the news that President Biden has withdrawn himself from the presidential race, the upcoming presidential race, just months before before the election is to take place. What turmoil that might bring about, what changes that might bring about. But here's what's a blessing to me. I know that God knows. And I know that just as God can protect us, God can direct us. Just as God knows who will be the king or the next president, He can direct that because of His omniscience or His all-knowing ability. I'm so glad we can trust the Lord. I'm so glad that even in these troublesome times, we don't have to be worried. We know that God knows the future. The song says, I don't know about tomorrow, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. I want to encourage you today to realize with me that the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as rivers of water, and he turneth it whithersoever he will. Let's don't worry. Let's trust God. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.